Good afternoon to everyone joining on the call. Welcome to room 6, the DSI Africa room. We'll just wait 1 or 2 minutes before we get started for people to join. All right, so I think we can get started. Once again, welcome to room 6, the DSI Africa room. So my name is my name is Tino. I excuse me. I'm the web developer for the DSI Africa Coordinating Center, and I, along with Ashley, will be your facilitator today. So we encourage you to introduce yourself in the chat, and there won't be enough time to introduce ourselves verbally, so you can just introduce yourself in the chat, and feel free to post any questions that you would have as well in the chat whilst the presenters present. So how this will work is that each of our presenters will share a presentation, and then they'll all share their presentations, and then after all the presentations, then we'll have a Q&A session. Without further ado, we can proceed to our first presenter, which will be Dr. Samir Panji from the LYZ ODSP. Samir, over to you.
Hello, afternoon, everybody. My name is Samir Panji, and I'm part of the LYZ ODSP platform project that's based at the University of Cape Town at Cape Town, South Africa. I'll just take you a little bit over through what LYZ is and what we're aiming to do. Let me just quickly turn these off. Okay, as I said, my name is Samir Panji, and I'm a part of the LYZ Open Data Science platform based at the University of Cape Town. So LYZ Open Data Science Platform and Coordination Center is to help facilitate the development of a trans-African network of data scientists. We're embedded within the DSI Africa project, which I think my colleague Michelle Skelton will give you a bit more of an overview about. Just briefly, within the DSI Africa ecosystem, you have projects which are for research hubs, and they're meant to demonstrate the feasibility of data science research and innovation to improve the health in Africa. We have the training grants, which are meant to offer masters and PhDs within data science with a health perspective and increase the capacity of data scientists within Africa. And we have ethical, legal, and social implications research grants. They explore the ethical, legal, and social implications of data science research from an African perspective and contribute to policy discussion on the continent. And a lot of that also has to do with the data sharing and governance as well, and movement of data across borders. So LYZ itself, we have multiple aims. The projects have multiple partners and data sets within the DSI Africa Consortium. We need to integrate these different data types, and we need to find the data, identify tools, and run analysis, and provide this in a collaborative space and platform for which collaborators and DSI Africa Consortium members can access storage and compute. And the solution needs to be feasible within an African context as well. So we aim to develop an African open data science platform and any associated researchers to support the DSI for health and discovery innovation in Africa, consortium, and beyond. In terms of design, we aim to be flexible and scalable and enable the implementation of data science for health that's relevant within Africa. So how do we support the DSI Africa Consortium? We do that through 4 modalities. We do that through data. That includes sharing the data, including reference data sets, serving metadata, developing data catalogs, and harmonizing the data, as well as trying to make the data fair as well within the DSI consortium. Tools, we make software stacks available. We develop and adapt new tools. We help with building containerized tool sets and also creating workflows between analysis scripts and customizing it for computing environment and providing them a collaborative environment to also compute as well. In terms of computing, this is the actual infrastructure. So we make the components available on multiple environments. We are trying to facilitate the adoption, the exploration of using cloud credit systems through the NIH Strides program. And we try to provide an ease of access to computing facilities as infrastructure as a service within the Ilifu platform that houses Iliwazi. In terms of training, we're very active in training. We have a very strong training component. In this case, we are helping to develop a data science curriculum, which will be mapped to competencies. We're hosting training materials and we're providing training on data science methods and also on the platform itself. So on the left side, you can see the different outputs that we're using to try and help support this. A lot of the support is through REDCap support as well as the metadata catalog. And we're providing hosting protocols, SOAPs, and guidelines as well for your tools and computing. And we have a help desk and user support groups as well. In terms of partners, we're 7 African partners, originally from the H3 Bionet network, and we have 3 based in the USA and 1 in the UK. So Iliwazi Open Data Science Platform is led by Professor Nicola Mulder from the University of Cape Town and the head of the Computational Biology Division. In terms of Iliwazi, we're structured into 4 different working groups. We have an infrastructure working group that's led by Jonathan Lawson from the Broad Institute and Harriet Walter from UCT. We have the data management working group that's led by Tony Burnett from the EBI and Leonard Zas from UCT. In terms of tools, it's led by Ben Vizier from University of Santa Cruz, California, Santa Cruz, and Shakuna Batru from the University of Mauritius. In terms of outreach, training, and user support, it's led by Dowdy Jingo from Makerere University and Nicola Mulder. And we have a monitoring and sustainability working group that's not really active at the moment. It might turn into more for policy and governance group that's led by Victor John Neal, and I'm part of that as well. In terms of the actual platform architecture, we are trying to go for what's known as a data biosphere concept, where you have your data biosphere that's accessible through scientific portals on the top. So this is the user layer that's one enters through, should be a user. Within the portals, we have data that's being indexed and is searchable. And within those in data sets, you can actually pull them to workspaces and you can use analytical engines to compute on them. And we have other applications such as your app, which would be your tool repository, such as Docstore, where you have your workflows and also your containers also sitting. And then we have a digital object catalog, which stores all the data and links to the data. The data itself could be sitting in different clouds or different storage platforms around the world, or around Africa in this case. So it could be on-prem cloud, it could be an on-prem solution, or it could be a data asset. But the user that comes in doesn't really see where the data is sitting. As far as they're concerned, they only access the data through the portal and through the actual infrastructure itself. A lot of the Iliwazi work is built on the Global Alliance for Genomics and Health standards. They build standards and APIs to enable the responsible sharing of data for health benefits. And I think the main thing about GA4GH is they recognize that datasets may not be able to move from where they're created due to national policies. So they're looking at standards and tools and APIs to facilitate finding the data and the tools and executing any analysis in multiple computing environments that might not be located on in a person, and the person who's analyzing data might not be located in the country, but they can have access to the data to compute the facility and take the results with them. So this is just a quick overview of the ODSP architecture. So this is the user. You come into the gateway. You have your training materials, your SOAP, and your public data portals. If you log in, you'll be able to search and receive data sets, choose your tools, select your compute. And your compute could be using the GA4GH standards, and that would be on either a local cloud or it could be on any of the cloud providers once we work with them, such as Amazon, Azure, or Google Cloud Platform. The user can also come through the portals as well and search the biomedical data, which will be mapped to metadata models in order to enable harmonization. And this can be searched in the catalog and the data repo, which will be indexed and searchable, and data can be imported into the user workspace. So this is just a schematic of how the user interacts with the system from a data perspective. The users can store the data sets in a cloud bucket and determine access. We'll hopefully include reference data sets, and the cloud bucket can either be on-prem or it could be in an on-prem as an S3 type bucket, or it could be in a cloud provider as well. So with we'll be helping the DSI Africa projects implement suitable data models and try and harmonize data to these data models and make the metadata searchable via catalog. At the moment, we want to also try and see if we can provide access to data sets for analysis via the J4JH data registry service as well. And that allows us to also implement other specifications such as passports, which might offer federation and restricted access data requests. So I think I've already covered this slide, sorry, going backwards. As I mentioned, the data will be stored and will be indexed and will be available for searching within the catalog. So in terms of the Oliwazi ODSP data management working group, I think we've got 4 main projects. 1 is the FAIR requirements, 2 is the data models, 3 is the data harmonization, and then 4th is to provide the data within the data portals. And this is just some of the small goals we have established, which we've gone somewhere to working towards. And as you can see, a lot of this has to do with mining the metadata, making the data available in data models, which can be used by the community. And this also enables reuse as well. We also are working towards providing dedicated harmonization support towards the different projects in order for us to aggregate data from all the different projects and to provide data sets which are bigger and have more power for any statistical analysis. The data management working group has been quite active. They've organized a couple of datathons and working meetings as well. And a lot of the concepts they've covered have to do with the goals that we have, such as the FAIR principles and assessments, where we've been providing a lot of training and working with the DSI Africa projects. Data harmonization, which is a focus actually on the metadata across the different projects, and also providing some support for projects to harmonize within the harmonized data within the project. Data models, and we'll be looking at quite a few, such as OMOP, and this is still ongoing. And data standards with the focus for image data standards as well. So far, we've managed to get up a basic version of the DSI Africa data catalog, which is available at this URL before, and a version 2 is being planned. In terms of the tools, we'd want the Oliwazi's users to get into the gateway, be able to identify the data sets, put it into an analysis space, and then identify the tools they like to use, such as if they want to pull workflows down, they can pull it from DocStore, or if they want to do interactive computing, they can use Jupyter Notebooks, or if they want to analyze the data, they can use R as well. And we hope this compute will either be done on a variety of platforms, including the Elifu Oliwazi platform as well. In terms of the tools and infrastructure, we do have a Terra instance that's up and it's available for people to use. And this is a collaborative workspace that anyone is welcome to log in with a Google ID. And we've also been providing a lot of training in the first year or two around DocStore, around Gen3 and Terra. And we've also going to start providing some training around DocStore itself, where one can submit their own workflows. These can be pulled by other people or your collaborators to use on their own data. And it also facilitates reusable science as well. In terms of the architecture, the compute itself will be looking at either using local on-premises computing or working with other cloud providers such as AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud Platform when they're in Africa, to enable the data to be stored and to be taken to analysis and compute platforms as well. Currently, we have 3 sites which are planning to host the Oliwazi infrastructure. One of them is at the Elifu cloud premises at University of Cape Town in South Africa, Cape Town. The second one will be at the University of Science, Techniques and Technology in Bamako in Mali. And the third one will be at the Makerere University in Uganda, Kampala. The sites in Mali and Kampala belong to the ACE centers, which is the African Centers for Excellence in Bioinformatics and Data Intensive Computing. So we're working with them to try and implement this infrastructure. In terms of training and outreach, we're quite active. One of our training coordinators, Verena Ross, has created a really nice pack for people who are planning to provide any training workshops or anything around that. It's got a lot of standard operating protocols for how to organize and host training events. And it's undergoing a review process, but it's quite useful if anybody's thinking of hosting course or any trainings, whether short-term or long-term, and it's quite comprehensive. In terms of outreach and training, we've organized 3 workshops this year. One is J4JH technical implementation of standards. This was more aimed at assist admins and the software developers working on the data stores and for interoperability of data research infrastructures within the DSI Africa Consortium. The second one was the DSI Data Catalog Jamboree. And this was aimed at the data management and analysis course personnel for the different projects for data harmonization and building of data catalog, and also for fair data assessments. The third workshop will be aimed more at the data analysts, scientists, and junior faculty and researchers, which will be focusing on workflows, tools, and containerization, which will happen in 2 weeks' time. In terms of research data management, Iliwazi will be hosting a annual research data management workshop that was originally created by HU Bionet, and a lot of the personnel are going to be part of the Iliwazi ODSP. And I think it's a really useful research data management workshop for students and people to attend. We do cover 7 modules, which are actually quite, I think, cover a lot of the most of the fundamentals that you'll need for data management and in today's day and age. In terms of training and outreach, we do have a help desk, so people are welcome to submit tickets to us, and we're quite active in a lot of the exhibitions and forums, and we hope to see you at any one of them in person. So this is what we want to work to. We want people to be able to come, find the tool sets that they're looking for, search a catalog for the tool sets, return a list of data sets, fetch your required tools, extract and fetch your required data, choose your compute, run it, and get your results. And I'd just like to acknowledge all the partners within Iliwazi, as well as the chairs and the co-chairs of the working groups. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samir, for that presentation. We will now move on to the next presentation and then take all the questions after that. So next up, we have Dr. Michelle Skelton from the DSI Africa Coordinating Center. Over to you, Michelle.
Thanks so much. Let me just get my slides up here.
Sorry, Tina, I'm trying to stop sharing my presentation. There we go.
I've
Okay,
stopped
thanks.
it for you. No problem.
Okay. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thank you so much for joining us today for this session. So I'm Michelle Skelton, also based at the University of Cape Town, and I head up the coordinating center part of the Iliwazi Open Data Science platform. And Nikki Mulder is the PI, of course, on the ODSP. So because DSI Africa projects cut across several sectors like health, climate, food systems, and social determinants, it's really important that the coordinating center creates a cohesive interdisciplinary network to facilitate data science-driven innovation and solutions for these complex health challenges we have in Africa. So that's a major goal. We also have, of course, 6 specific objectives broadly here. I've listed them. So we cover administration and communication, cross-consortium activities. We are the custodians of various resources and databases. We coordinate training, capacity development. We also run a trainee travel fellowship. We are involved in the outreach and stakeholder engagement, and we're also responsible for assessment so that we can measure the impact of DSI as we go along. And we'll do this by monitoring and evaluation. So this just shows the structure of the organization, with the coordinating center in the center, of course, working very closely with the Iliwazi ODSP. We work very closely with the projects. They are the training, research, and also projects. We support the working group activity. We also support the steering committee, work closely with the chair and the co-chair, and also work with the NIH program staff, as these projects are cooperative agreements, and therefore the NIH members are really partners and not just seen as funders. We interact with them on all of these programs as you've seen today. There's also a potential to develop expert committees, whether it's around IP or data sharing. These have not been convened yet, but we may do so in the future. So I think Francis touched on the footprint we have in Africa. So we have 7 research hubs being supported, 7 research training programs, and then 4 ELSI projects, and of course the ODSP. And you can see the footprint across Africa in 19 countries. So the cross-consortium activities, this really includes things like the steering committee meetings, the working group activities and consortium meetings. For the steering committee meetings, we really focus on progress reporting from the various projects. Here we have the design projects reported recently, and also the LC project led by Kimantri Moodley reporting recently at steering committee. The working groups report regularly as well. And we also host external stakeholders that are aligned with DSI Africa, or if there's some new innovations. We also hosted Lacuna Fund, for instance. They support AI and machine learning in low to middle income countries. So we host organizations like that at these cross-consortium events. So just to talk a bit about our working groups, just a bit deeper. So the training coordination the training and education working group really focuses on all our training efforts, harmonizing that across the consortium, identifying needs and gaps. And also those resources, having a sort of common space where we can point to those, we're working on that, and also increasing training opportunities. I will talk about the introductory data science flagship course that they're working on a bit later. The data management working group is really important because it's really trying to facilitate that large research across the consortium by harmonizing data sets so that you can combine those data sets for more powerful studies, right? So they focus on data models and harmonization, data standards that Samir just spoke about now. And also they talk about what needs there are in terms of data storage, cloud infrastructure, tools, and then compute infrastructure, and fair implementation with the projects, of course, because the projects are represented on those working groups. Data governance as well. There's a lot going on in that space with global data sharing policies like the GDPR, the EU policies, many African countries adopting data protection policies, at least 36 African countries. So we work across borders, and we need a governance policy within the consortium to guide us. So this working group really focuses on that. The partnerships working group, the network exchange is one of the key activities that we do within the partnerships and outreach group. This group is open to external membership, so you're welcome to join it if you want to keep up to date with what's happening in the consortium. So we host network exchanges. We also work with other organizations on workshops, which we just did in Ghana. In September, we worked with the Deep Learning Lab and attended. Two of us from the coordinating team that attended that. So this is just some working group activities. This is the data governance working group hosting Kiara Stanton and also Mark McCarthy from Genentech. This is basically a pharma group, and they want to engage African scientists in genomics, are creating these large genomic data sets in Africa, and there are various models on how they may partner with African scientists, and we host them at the data governance working group. So we also the custodians of various resources and databases. As I said before, we use Active Collab to manage our collaborations and our working group project spaces where we can track documents, emails, agendas, and they all sit in the space. So that's a very useful tool for us. We also use REDCap as our primary database. Sorry, let me just switch off my heater. It's still really cold in South Africa. So we use REDCap as our primary database, and we're also hosting a symposium and training together with the ODSP. October. So this was really aimed at the data DMAX, the data management administrative course. So they would use the REDCap for data collection and standardization, but not all the research projects are using REDCap. They have some bespoke databases and also some, of course, in-house databases. But in any event, we're offering this training. The consortium started off during the pandemic, and we couldn't meet face-to-face. We used a tool called Cognitive Cities, which really takes in structured and non-structured unstructured data. So we created this digital ecosystem to view who was in the consortium, which projects, where they were sitting, and we could ask various questions of this ecosystem or this platform. We could see what connections there were between projects. We could also see which projects had a footprint in which countries. For instance, all of these projects like had connections in Nigeria, and the DSI law had a footprint in 4 countries. So we could ask some questions. It's quite a training intensive tool, but I think Elwazi is still using it for some of its work that it's doing. So that's one of the resources. So yeah, I've just highlighted the training working group. We have Rina as the chair, Bill Hirsch as the co-chair, and Julia Rolanda Julius as our training coordinator. So they do quite a lot of work very closely with the 7 training research hubs, but actually all the projects, whoever's doing training, they're welcome to join the training working group. So Rolanda has collected some information from the various projects on what postgrad training or other short-term training they're offering. You can see there's a master's, there's PhDs, there's postdocs. So we don't have information from all the projects, so we do need that as well. She's put that into a bar graph here where you have your projects on the x-axis, and then what types of students each project has, and there's a combination, of course, in some just have PhDs, some just have postdocs. So we're gathering that information as well as part of our capacity tracking. Then the training working is also working to develop an introductory course in data science, and of course, because our network is multidisciplinary, we have a very individuals from professors to data analysts to students and so on. So we need to sort of match this skills to various competencies to develop the course, and the training working group is really doing that, and they have a framework for the competency mapping and a plan for that going started in 2021, where they identified needs and gaps around data science training. They shared this information with the community so that everyone is on the same page, and they're developing their personas and competencies, and then hopefully by 2024 we can launch the course. But of course the training working group is handling this, and we can speak to them about that if you're interested. So we also, part of what the coordinating center does is to run datathons with the help, of course, with all the projects across the consortium. We were fortunate enough to learn from Judy Chichoya's lab and the Haiti lab at Emory. So we joined the group with a run-up to the datathon, which was AI bias and run in, I think it was August. So we managed to sit in on the planning meetings, learn about, moving big data sets from one server to the other, and it was rather technical, but we also on a learning curve, so that was a really great experience, and we managed to engage these various mentors during that datathon, and yeah, we hope we can implement some of what we learned there as well. So, and this is just about our datathon. We're working with Uzima, with the IBM Africa, Skylar Speakman, trying to use their code to apply to various data sets for our upcoming datathon, which will happen in November this year. So the outreach and stakeholder engagement, so we really have multiple levels at which we work. As I said, the partnerships and outreach group, the network exchanges, we host at steering committee, working groups and consortium meetings, various organizations and speakers that approach us, or we approach as we have similar interests. So this is the first in-person meeting that happened in Cape Town, November 2021. That's a group photo, and then this is some of our in-person working group activities. And of course, you're now currently attending the virtual network exchange. We'll have an in-person network exchange as well in November in Kigali. Hopefully we can engage with some of the local tech or AI or machine learning or data science groups there. This is from the previous network exchange where we interacted with several external stakeholders like Science for Africa, IDRC, and then Wellcome Trust. Wellcome Trust also has a data science funding program, and they will be, I think, will have another offering coming up in this data science funding support And we will share that when we have that information. And they probably will be attending the consortium meeting in November as well. So yes, so this is our consortium meeting coming up in November. I'm just checking the time because we still want to take questions. Yes. And this is just the Deep Learning Indaba. We had about 4 or 5 projects and the students attend the Deep Learning Indaba with coordinators, and of course, Amita and Laura were there as well from the NIH. We're also responsible for social media. We're increasing our following on the Twitter X platform. You will have to watch that space. And I just want to thank my group and also acknowledge the Awazi ODSP folks and keys and then also the NIH folks for what I did. So thank you. And we can take questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Michelle Skelton, for that presentation. So we'll now move to the Q&A. So considering we're a relatively large group, if you have a question, you can just raise your hand and then I'll acknowledge you and you can ask your question, or you can feel free to pop your question in the chat as well. So any questions for either Dr. Skelton, Dr. Manji?
Yeah.
Please go ahead, Anas.
Yeah, so please, this is just a, I want to know where we can have access to the presentation maybe after the virtual networking.
So we will share the presentations with all the people who have registered after the meeting. Okay, I see Bubakar. Can go ahead.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you to the speakers for those nice presentation. So I have questions for Samir. How do you handle privacy issues and yeah, basically privacy and security in that this platform you're trying to build? And do I ask the second question, or you want to respond to that first?
Sure, Babakar, you can ask a second question.
The second question is this idea that you have this data set sitting in different locations. Individually, yes, you can access and do the analysis, but like you said, if you are able to kind of find a way to integrate information from these different data sets, you would have more power to do whatever analysis or predictions that or inference you want to do. So I know tools have been developed around federated learning, where, for instance, if you're in the machine learning space, how can you do this analysis where incrementally you can get information from all these different data sets where you don't violate privacy, and even where you don't have to move these data sets or even integrate them together, like you in some instances you're suggesting.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for those questions, Babakar, and I hope you're doing well. Good to chat to you after some time.
Yes, good to see you too. Thanks.
So in terms of privacy, that's a very good question, Babakar. So there are 3 ways we can approach this in terms of security. So from a technical implementation, a lot of the tools that we're using in the Iliwazi Ilifu platform are open source tools, but they've also been audited for security. So a lot of the tools that we have also do have a NIST, National Institutes of Standards and Technology kind of compliance. And they do also have guidelines on how to keep your data secure and also private. But having said that, I mean, I think security really is a big deal. And it's also, I mean, in today's day that's interconnected on cloud platforms and everyone's interconnected, one compromisation of a login somewhere could also affect other systems as well. So we do take security quite seriously. I think when we give people access to the actual system, we'll be doing it on a case-by-case basis where they'll have to be vetted and they'll have to go through an application process. And we'll also need to know what kind of data that they want to access. In terms of an actual DSI Africa data privacy and security policy, I think the data governance working group needs to come up with that. In some cases, I think we'll have different data sets that have different owners. So they might be sitting under different data access committees as well. So what we try to do is, we're hoping to do is provide something where people can visit the data. So this speaks to your second question, Boubacar, which is about how can you do distributed analysis. So if you have data sets that's sitting in Mali and sitting in Uganda and sitting in South Africa, we can't move those data sets across the border. But what we're hoping to do with our kind of infrastructure that we put in is one can log in from Uganda and they can search the portal there, and they can also search the data that's sitting in South Africa and the data that's sitting in Mali. And then if you want to compute on the data, you send a request on your local compute infrastructure, which then is connected to the other 3 compute systems using the JF or JH standards. So if you want to compute on it, you'd send it as a task execution service. And then that goes, if the data is sitting in South Africa, it comes to our servers and onto our machines, and it runs your workflow or your script on the data that's sitting there, and then it exports the results for you. And I think the workflows, we want to put them on Dockstore, so anybody can pull down a workflow from anywhere in the world. It sounds really good, but I think a lot of the technical implementations and a lot of technical hurdles I'm sure we'll face, and I'm sure won't be as smooth sailing as that. But that is the end vision for that. Does that answer your question sufficiently, Boubacar?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. Yes, like I said, it's easy to say, but it's difficult to implement. Yes, but I'm glad
Yes.
you guys are thinking about these things. Yeah.
Great. The next question is from Chico Dili. Go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for your presentation. My question goes to Skelton. It is based on the training and the opportunities. I want to know the kind of training that is going on in DS Africa, like if there is something on training on deep learning or use of machine learning approaches. That's number one question. And I want to also know if one is seeking for master's program, is there opportunity for one to apply to DS Africa for sponsorship? Thank you.
Thank you, Chikoli. So with the master's programs, I think the research projects have taken the first intake of the cohort of students, and I think they will only so I can't speak. So I think some of them are at different stages, and we can find out that information for you. But certainly those that have, for instance, the DS Change in Kumasi at Tufts University, they have taken the intake of students, and then they will first see that those graduate before they intake again, right? And then I think I'm not sure where you're based, but it would make sense then to look at those projects in your region. As I think the projects recruit from like in the country, and that just makes sense for them. So that's the MSc, and I think that the program would come with support, because I think that's the way it was designed, to give the student support for the fees and so on, if that's what you're asking. And then in terms of the type of training that's being done, I think some projects are doing some machine learning, but maybe some can speak a bit more about that. We also still trying to get information on the short courses that our training programs are offering. And you were asking about the types of training. So as I said, we're doing some REDCap training on that database as well. Yeah, I think that was some of what you've asked, but I'm not sure if Samir, if Alwazi will be running any kind of machine learning training, or would know of as well.
Sorry, Michelle, at the moment, we're not planning to give specific machine learning courses, because we feel that the education programs themselves will be able to teach that better in their curriculums, but we will help support them. And as well as I think some of the new DSI Africa programs will be running a lot of datathons and hackathons that will incorporate machine learning. So we will provide support to them. And I'm sure within the actual DSI Africa data sciences competency curriculum, there will be a session, there will be some modules dedicated to machine learning itself.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up we have Omotayo.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My question basically it's quite similar to the one Chico Dili, made. It has to do with respect to capacity building, which of course have actually received the feedback, from the response, given in terms of. I'm also interested in the capacity building in the area of data science and machine learning. However, what I'll probably, say is that if there's any of the DSA affiliates that are running such a program or any short course, perhaps such information can be disseminated so that interested, should I say, individuals can probably join. Thank you.
Michelle?
Yes, that's right. So we do have a newsletter that you can sign up for, and we often put our opportunities also on our website, right? So, and also I think what we do is we have a from this network exchange, we'll add you to our broader mailing list, and then also disseminate through that as well. I think the newsletter goes out, or news flash goes out twice a month. Francis disseminates that.
Thank you.
Next is Kaurai.
Right, thanks, Tino. I just wanted to ask, probably this goes to Sumer or Michelle. How have you been able to navigate, your relationships with the local governments, let's say the ministries of health and all that, especially noting that, when dealing with health data is quite a sensitive issue. I just wanted to know the engagement with the government and how responsive have they been with the projects that you have been doing. Thanks.
Maybe Michelle, I could try and answer a little bit of that.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, Tari, so as DSI Africa Coordinating Center, or as Iliwazi, we're currently not engaging with governments because we're not generating data, nor we're data generators. And I think with the DSI Africa research projects, I don't think they're generating data. They're using already existing data and secondary data to create secondary data sets. I do know a lot of them have been having engagements, and I think that will probably be for each of the projects to speak for themselves. For example, like the Uzima project is based in Kenya and East Africa. So I think they've been having discussions with the government. And I know Madiba, that's based in South Africa, has also been having discussions with the provincial health ministry, the provincial health departments as well. I think one of the biggest things that we do find across Africa is data sharing tends to be very fragmented in terms of the policy, in terms of what's allowed to be shared and what's not allowed to be shared. And some countries have a very strict approach that nothing can be exported, and some countries are like on a case-by-case basis. So I think one of the most important things within the DSI Africa consortium is at least trying to harmonize some of those data access policies across the African continent as well.
Yeah, I can just add about, as I said, I think there's about 36 African countries that are now adopting data protection laws. And I think obviously that will provide some guidelines, but probably also some difficulties. So in South Africa, with the POPI Act, the protection of personal information, we have been recently having discussions in networks as well about genomic data being seen as personal information, and how that's been shared in many research projects with the sort of the oversight of ethics committees. So in South Africa, there's something that's being published recently. It's called the ASAF Code of Conduct, which tries to support researchers in terms of how they handle genomic data and how that's viewed, and there's special sort of considerations for research purposes, where you don't sort of get sort of inundated with all those protective laws, but there is some kind of sort of meet you halfway in terms of using genomic data for research. So there is some guidelines on that for research specifically. But I think one has to look, of course, within a country. But we do have a website that can help, and I can try and find that as well, that can guide you on the local laws around data sharing. One of the DSI law project has actually created that resource. I can try and just find that website and share it here as well. Okay.
Right, thanks,
There
Sarah.
are some questions in the chat that I'm not able to keep up with, but maybe we can get those and then answer them individually by email.
Maybe if I could answer Jacinda's questions quickly. Just see this question.
Yeah.
So Jacinda's question. Sorry, you asked about if you could share some lessons learned and challenges in acquiring data sets from various sources. So Jacinda, at least with Iliwazi, we're not acquiring data sets, but working with the different DSI Africa projects, yes, this is quite challenging. I do know, like, for example, the HEAT project is because they're looking at climate data, which they're really good at, and they can get the climate data readily and freely available, but also looking at health and maternal data as well. So they're having to go through a lot of literature, find papers, and then email the authors themselves. And it's a very long and tedious process. And then once they do get some buy-in, they then need to create data sharing agreements between our institution, which is UCT, and their institution as well. And I think a lot of this is also because I think a lot of researchers in Africa are a bit hesitant for data sharing, because it seems, from the experience I've got from HEAT, it seems some of them have really good data sets, but by sharing them, they've been burnt before. So there is a little bit of resistance to that. So I think that does make it a bit more tricky. And you're right, a lot of the data is scattered and a lot of it is stored locally, which is also a shame, because then that means a lot of that data could disappear quite quickly as well. So I think one of the great things about DSI Africa is I think all the research hubs are actually acquiring all this data from around Africa, and they're trying to integrate that to create big data sets that can be used for the community past DSI Africa as well. But it is challenging. And then I think another problem you do have with that is, as we're not the data generators, the primary data has some reuse conditions. But once you integrate it with data and you transform the data, you're creating a secondary data set. So what restrictions are those data sets covered by? So those are some of the challenges which we are actually facing and we're working through. Thanks.
Thank you. We have 3 minutes left, so I'll go to Mamadou. You had your hand up.
Okay, thank you. So my question, thank you for the presentation. My question is about to know if it is possible for PhD students to use a Elwozi platform like a source of a data source for their work. So if it is possible, what are the process for that? Thank you.
Okay, I see you've got 54 seconds. I'll try and answer your questions really quickly. Mamadou, so at the moment, we've not got data in there, but once we do, it will depend on where the Data Access Committee sits. People can come and look for the data, they can find the data, and they can move that data to where they want to compute. In your case, I think it will be in Mali, so we'll have an Iliwazi site in Mali at the ACE Center at USTTB in Bamako. And then you can actually compute using their servers, or you can move your compute onto a cloud, if you like. And hopefully we should be able to do this within the next year when we have a lot of the data from the catalogs in. Rokaya, nice to see you again. 2 questions, an external research working group for collaboration. So they do put up research calls that do come out once quite a bit. So I think sign up for the DSI Africa Newsflash and you can get information on that. RedCap Africa is